Good morning and welcome to the Quantum Technology Training for Policymakers. This is our third series, and we had already run the two series of seminars in the past, and we are trying to provide the fresh and on the spot information about quantum technologies and the European ecosystem. Today, we are going to talk about standardization, and we have two expert guests representing the European Standardization Committee and the QUIC, the Quantum Industry Consortium. And before that, I only wanted to share with you that there was over 60 registrants for this session, and you come from all over 22 countries, which is great success for us. And the majority of you represent governmental policymaking at the European level and the national levels as well. And we also have a good fraction of people representing policymaking in industry and in academia and research. So I'm looking forward for the insightful talks, and we will have half an hour dedicated to question and answer sessions where you are very welcome to write your questions in the questions Q&A window, and we will be then asking them to the speakers at the end of the session. With this, I am very happy to invite our first speaker, Dr. Oskar van Deventer, to come on stage and start sharing his slides. And I would like to present him that he's a senior researcher scientist at the TNO, which is the Netherlands Organization for Applied Science and Research. And he is the European leader in the standardization of quantum technologies. He has chaired the 𝐐𝐮𝐚𝐧 Joint Technical Committee, Joint Thematic Committee 22 on the quantum technology since 2020. He has several decades of experience in developing standards across numerous standards developing organizations. And he is the author of one book, more than 250 publications, over 90 patents, and over 1,000 standardization contributions in several international standards. He is also a co-author of the an editor of the 100 co-author European Standardization Roadmap for Quantum Technologies, which is very precious for us in the meeting of today. Oskar, before starting to contribute to the standards on quantum technologies, has more than 30 years of experience in the field of communication and information technologies. He worked with voice networking, media networking, and in 2014, he shifted to the blockchain networking and self-sovereign identity. Oskar, we are very pleased to have you with us today, and now the stage is yours.
Thank you, Oxana, for that introduction. Well, no need to further introduce myself other than the chairman of 𝐶𝐮𝐚𝐧 Standardization for Quantum Technologies. And since we are here with a group of policymakers, I had been thinking my main message to policymakers, and I will repeat this many times, is require standardization from your funded projects. But before going to the conclusion of my presentation, first some breaking news. This month, or actually last month in September, 𝐶𝐮𝐚𝐧 JTC 22, we just published our first standard, which is a technical report with a layer model for quantum computing, which explains how a certain type of quantum computer can construct it from several hardware and software modules. So very important. Other breaking news is that release 1.1 of the JTC 22 European Roadmap for Standardization for Quantum has been released as well. Okay, what are we going to discuss today in the very short time that we have? First of all, standardization. Why are we doing it? Quantum technologies, what are we working on in standardization? And then finally, my call to action to you, that is policymakers, if you fund your industry to do useful quantum technology work, research and development, make sure that you require them to develop a standardization strategy, to develop and execute, comply or explain. Okay, that's it in short. Why standardization? The answer is supply chains. The reason that we as policymakers stimulate our industry to develop quantum technologies is that we want to have economic growth. We want to have products. We want to have services. We want to have a market. We want to have supply chains where parties make components for a quantum computer, the other parties make a software for the quantum computer, ditto for quantum communication systems. So, and standards play an important role here because the standards, they define the market. They sort of harmonize the supply chain such that when a vendor sells something to a buyer, they can refer to the standard like what qualities does it have, what level of security, what interfaces does it support. If you want to discuss this all bilaterally, it costs a lot of time, whereas if you can refer to standards, you will make it much easier for parties to do business with each other. And that is the reason why we are stimulating our industry. We want to stimulate business. And here we just have a list of all the things that can happen in quantum technologies where you have buyers and sellers. And even for quantum scientists, they are also buying a lot of components and systems. Then let's understand standardization is an arena. For startups, there are many arenas. The market arena. You want to develop a product and you want to compete against the competitors. You want to cherish your customers. You want to sell products. There's the investor arena, getting equity, getting loans, getting sponsorships. There's the collaborative projects arena, European projects, national projects, where you want to collaborate with your competitors, with your customers, with your suppliers to prototype your supply chains. We have the regulatory arena to influence policies for your market position. Well, standardization is also an arena. First of all, it's an industrial arena where you have collaborating, competing companies. Co-opetition is the word for this, where they work together to grow their markets for products and services. But it's also a geopolitical arena, industry politics, European values. And this is exactly the reason why policymakers, they make regulations and fundings to stimulate the industry. And standardization is an important arena for that. So talking about standardization strategies, what are possible standardization strategies? And let's look from a point of view of a startup. One strategy is to completely ignore. For startups, maybe you want to focus on your customers and to focus on growing your supply chain. And maybe standardization doesn't have your priority. Completely understandable, maybe a valid strategy, but you need to understand the associated risks. The risk of getting left out when something happens and you're not compliant to the standard, and suddenly your customers are going to require that. Then you need to catch up with something that others are already doing. Another thing, observe from a distance, join your national mirror committee, or maybe start participating and make sure that your European solution is not excluded by the standard, or formulated positively that the standards help support our European and national solutions. Or maybe drive a standardization project. If you have a special component, for instance, cryogenic connectors, and this is a real example, then you may want to drive it because you want to harmonize the market such that people understand that your connectors are very well suited for cryogenic circumstances where you have, for instance, in quantum computing, or even lead a standardization group. In my case, I'm a chairman, and the reason that I'm leading it is because Europe is sponsoring me to defend the European values. And this is exactly why I'm now giving you this presentation to convince you about the importance. And yes, standardization takes money and it takes time. And sometimes I hear people complaining about them. They haven't made good standards. Their standards are too slow. And my Delft wisdom tile is there is no they in standardization. If I as a company, if I as a policymaker, if I have an interest in standardization, then I am responsible for making it happening by participating, by contributing, by funding, etc. There is no they in standardization. Now, why my appeal? Ouch. European projects and also many national projects are invisible in standardization. So major standardization is ongoing. China has been leading for the past 10 years in ISO, US, China, Korea, Japan, Australia. Of course, Europe is visible. There is some visibility, but the European projects where a lot of European investment is happening, they're not visible. The pilot lines, 𝐒𝐿-𝐄𝐿 about quantum communication infrastructure, Euro-HPC about high performance computing, Horizon Europe, Digital Europe. Ouch, that hurts. And why does it happen? It's very simple. The parties funding it, the policymakers, yes, all of us, we didn't give any standardization targets. And of course, as Europe, this and as European countries, this means a risk for us. The risk that the standards do not reflect the European values, the European industry interest, and that we leave the dominance to other parties. Okay, that was the ouch. So what has been happening? The glass is half full or half empty. The half full part is that Europe already noticed this lack very early on in 2019. And a couple of years ago, we started the 𝐐ENNELEC Joint Technical Committee 22 on quantum technologies. Here you can see the structure. It's the structure that you have seen in many places. Strategy, enabling technologies, computing, and communication. And if you want to participate in standardization, you do that first of all by contacting your national mirror committee, or in 𝐒𝐻𝐶, just become an 𝐒𝐻𝐶 member. So we think that the European project grantees, or they should participate. So ask them about their standardization strategy and tell them, check with your national standards body, check with what's happening, how it's relevant for your project. Okay, what are we working on in JTC 22? Well, at this moment, our first focus is on the enabling technologies, standardizing test methods to characterize components, because the quantum computers and quantum communication networks, they are still work in progress, but they are already buying lots of components that need to be integrated. But what are the specifications of the component? What is the data sheet? And for my own organization, we have bought an entangled photon pair source for a quantum communication network, and it didn't comply to its own data sheet. And we had 2 years of delay because of the fact that the data sheet was incorrect, that we couldn't use the component, we had to send it back. And if there were standards and that we could have trusted the data sheet, then we wouldn't have had that delay, which is exactly the reason why we are now having standardization on the characterization of that component. But as you can see from the list, there are many other components, and the list is growing, for which we are developing standards, how to measure them, how to characterize them. And of course, we have more priorities, also in the quantum computing, quantum communication, and I'll just flash you this list. But if you go to our work program, click on the link here on the top, you can see all the different activities that we're working on. And this list is growing. And as already mentioned, some of our standards are getting close to publication, including some in the area of quantum computing. The European Standardization Roadmap. Unfortunately, we have some confusion in the market. The European Commission asked for a European standardization roadmap, which is a policy document focused on policymakers, whereas JTC 22 has already drafted a European standardization roadmap, and it has exactly the same name, but this is a technical roadmap. It's a non-controversial roadmap that explains what technologies are there, what standards are needed, and also a timeline. And it is non-controversial. It is global use. So also our Chinese and American friends are using this, and it's a very good tool to collaborate with our competitors, also with competing countries and competing continents. So please read the roadmap. So we have already come to my final slide. That is my call to action. During my presentation, you already heard my frustration that the European projects are not too visible in European standardization. And of course, the glass is half full and half empty. But my call to action is require standardization. Why do we want to do that? European countries and Europe, we are investing big in European products, services, supply chains, and markets. And how are we doing that? We are doing that through Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, Euro QCI, Euro HPC, pilot lines, and many, many national projects. So whenever, as a policymaker, you make policies to fund projects, then require a standardization strategy from those projects. Require them to draft the standardization strategy in the first few months, and then to execute that strategy in the later months. And as I already explained, there are many strategies, starting from ignoring, which can be a valid strategy, until till leading standardization. But anyway, there shall be a strategy. Comply or explain. And standardization is not something that you do at the project end, like a dissemination thing, like, okay, we have 5 papers and 1 standardization contribution. No, there is no they in standardization that are going to do it for you. You need to do it yourself, and you need to start with it at the project. And so while you're working on the supply chain with your collaborators and competitors in your European project, make sure that the standardization work happens in parallel. That's my call to action, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oskar, for these deep insights and calls for action, which are particular of a great use for the policymakers that are attending. And I remind to the participants that you are welcome to write questions in the Q&A section, and we will be asking them after the second presentation. With this, I'd like to thank Oskar again and for the moment stay with us. And I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Homer Papadopoulos. And while he's sharing his slides, I present him. He's a researcher, he's research director at the National Center for Science and Research, Timokritos, in Greece. And he is a co-founder of Physicist company, which is empowering healthcare with quantum technologies. He holds a degree in physics and in telecommunication, and a PhD in information science and information technologies from the University of Bath in UK. He is an experienced researcher and development manager with the proven track of records in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and mobile services, and telecommunication networks as well, and has more than 20 years experience in creating multidisciplinary research programs. Now, based in Athens, he is a partner in the Greek QCI, and you will now see that there is an attempt towards standardization and visibility of this project, but as we learned from Oskar, that is not enough, because Homer is representing explicitly the task on standardization in the HELES QCI project. And he also serves as a mandate expert in the 𝐐𝐮𝐚𝐧 JTC 22, so they are colleagues with Oskar on that road. as well as in the GT3 Committee for Greece. He also chairs the Standardization Working Group for European Quantum Industry Consortium, which is exactly the role that he is going to be representing today for us, and participates in both high-level forums on European standardization and the European multi-stakeholder platform on the ICT standardization. Thank you very much, Homer, for being with us today, and the stage is yours now. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Oksana, and thanks for the invitation to participate and present the industry perspective on the standards roadmap. In this presentation, I'm going to present, I'm representing 𝐶IC and the working group in 𝐶IC, the working group that is relevant to standards. For those that are not aware, what is 𝐶IC is a non-profit association established 4 years ago with a mission to grow and strengthen the quantum technology ecosystem in Europe. What is 𝐶IC is a hub, a communication hub, a collaboration hub that brings together all the relevant stakeholders in order to generate, to discuss the challenges, generate white papers, recommendations, etc. More than 200 members. The majority is coming from EU, but there are members from outside the EU, and now there are members of in 𝐶IC that are outside of Europe. I am a member in 𝐶IC as a co-founder of Synthesis. 𝐶IC has working groups. As I said, there are working groups vertical for computing, communication, quantum communication, sensing and enabling technology, but there are horizontal working groups, education and skills, the standards working group, which I'm leading, IP and trade, growth and industrial applications. So let's start with the roadmap. A few months ago, EU released the quantum strategy. In this quantum strategy, we identify and some priorities that EU has set for the future. These priorities concern interoperability and standards. EU wants to build on that, wants to support products that are interoperable in order to support the market. For that, intends to release next year a roadmap, a quantum standards roadmap. As Oskar mentioned, there are many roadmaps, and there is the dominant roadmap from 𝐐𝐮𝐚, but this is a more technical roadmap. So we assume that Europe now wants to include in this roadmap other aspects like policy aspects, strategy, market determinants, etc. So one priority for EU is to create interoperable quantum technologies. The other priority for EU is very clear. EU is heavily funding quantum networks, quantum infrastructures. They want to create security frameworks around these infrastructures, and in order to do that, they want to create the certification processes. So certification and security framework is another priority for EU. And the third priority for EU regarding the standards domain is that they want not to create an ecosystem fragmented and closed from the other parts of the world, but they want to create an ecosystem that is able to communicate with other countries. In that case, EU wants to strengthen presence in international forum, international SDOs, etc. And for that is releasing programs like research programs that trying to motivate the collaboration of EU entities with other countries. So these are the three main aims of EU for the future: support interoperable products, secure what is developing, the infrastructure in EU by setting up certification processes and open the ecosystem to collaborate with other parts of the world. So in that case, 𝐭𝐾 provided a recommendation, a white paper, where 𝐭𝐾 bring into the industry perspective. You can identify in this link this white paper, and you can download it. For example, I am not going to go through the whole paper, but for the section of the standards, 𝐭𝐾 suggested to create a European quantum IP strategy, for example. So highlighted the IP strategy as a key aspect of this strategy. Also, 𝐭𝐾 also suggested to incentivize the industry to join the international standardization bodies. Participating in a standardization body, and especially in international standardization body, is a quite expensive hobby. And in that case, somehow Europe should support the industry and especially the SMEs to do that. For this paper, almost 60 individuals, members of 𝐭𝐾, participated and developed this paper. I'm going to go through the challenges and questions about the standardization roadmap, because EU has intends to release a roadmap, standardization roadmap within 2026. So what are the key challenges? What EU should consider in this roadmap development? The first is this roadmap should include from the beginning industry. So this roadmap should not be an academic document or policy-driven document, but should reflect industrial priorities. So it should consider supply chain requirements, certification costs. We will discuss that afterwards, which is a very key aspect. And of course, interoperability with the global markets. Security and certification, certification frameworks. How this roadmap should clarify how this certification process will affect the product design and the time to market and the cost. This should be clear, and this is a strategic decision from EU. Let me give you an example from the medical market. In order to certify a medical product in class 2 or 3, you need millions and many years of clinical trials. So this is very difficult for an SME to adhere to this framework. This will be the same approach for the certification framework for quantum technologies, especially that these technologies concern security. It will be an expensive process. In that case, SMEs will be out of the game. So this should be considered in the decisions. Technical interoperability. Okay, EU wants interoperability of the products, but the interoperability should be, the standard should be implementable. I mean, creating a standard that's quite complex and it's very difficult for an SME to adhere to, it's something that should be avoided. Okay, so this standard should be pragmatic. And the global positioning, EU wants to open and to be in contact and to lead the global standard domain in quantum. Yes, but in that case, it should clarify its position on what is happening outside of Europe. For example, in South Korea, there is an organization that is promoting de facto standards, standards that are coming from the industry and adopted by SMEs without excluding the role of standardization bodies like CNR-INO, etc. And some European companies are participating in these groups. What is the position of EU in that case? If EU wants to collaborate with the other part of the world, US and Asia, have to clarify its position on that. Let's go through and see what this roadmap should consider per each vertical. Let's go to the quantum communication, which is my main expertise. So the roadmap should consider testbed and access models, but how open these testbeds will be for companies, and what about the IP issues and the cost models? These issues should be clarified in the roadmap or should be considered in this roadmap. Certification, we discussed that certification, especially for QKD, because it's the most mature device and system in the quantum technologies. But designing a certification process should be discussed with the industrial ecosystem in order to find a balance, okay? Not to exclude SMEs and to balance between cost and time to market. 𝐒𝐭𝐴 integration. Also, this should be discussed in this roadmap. This infrastructure that EU is developing should provide opportunities for SMEs to plug into these deployments, their products. Now, what is happening is that the owner of each 𝐒𝐭𝐴 infrastructure is the one that is taking the decisions. If you are out of this, let's say, ecosystem, it's very difficult to utilize and use these networks. And this is something that the roadmap should consider as well. And of course, the timeline. Okay, there are some targets, 2030 as a target. Is this feasible? We have to discuss that, and the roadmap should discuss that in order the milestones that the roadmap will set should be realistic. About quantum sensing. For quantum sensing, we believe that the roadmap should consider industrial use cases as drivers, not academic initiatives, but the roadmap should work on use cases, for example, aviation, navigation, energy, etc. And this should be the main driver for this roadmap. For the gravimeter deployment, which is something that strategies the roadmap should consider, is also there should be industry involvement in pilot deployments, etc. And of course, there should be standardization support for the SMEs to participate in this testing infrastructure for calibration. About the quantum computing, we have benchmarks and metrics. This is something that the roadmap should work with. What does it mean? It means that industry needs standards for performance benchmarking. So this is very important for quantum computing. This is very important for quantum computing because the SME should have this benchmark in order to take decisions on which technology to invest. And of course, when we are talking about quantum computing on the cloud, we have to clarify the certification schemes for quantum computing providers in order to secure data security, interoperability, reliability, etc. Very important, and this should be considered in this roadmap as well. Regarding the chips roadmap, because this should be also a part, a section in this roadmap, we assure alignment with semiconductor foundries, because this is the case. And again, we have to discuss in this roadmap the feasibility, the IP protection of the companies that are working with these foundries, etc. Interoperability standards are very important for these chips because we have to avoid vendor lock-in. It's very important to avoid what is happening in the other domains like chips, classical chips, where we have vendor lock-in and few and dominant companies that are dominating this market. About the space, which is something that is happening, and the defense, we have to clarify two things in this roadmap. Dual use tech. What is the case of export control and security classification and procurement process for defense-related quantum technology? It's very important because when you invest your money in a technology, you have to have a very clear environment and clear understanding of what you can do with the products that you will produce. If there is export control and you can only sell within a very closed market, this may be an issue that the venture capitalist that will fund you is not positive towards this approach. So this should be clarified in this roadmap. And the standardization in space also is very important because interoperability for satellite-based quantum links is very crucial for the industry in order to scale and how to use these space infrastructures. For example, in our company, we have we want to implement a service to use space to satellite QKD systems to offer us a service in order to complement the whole service you are providing. How is it to do that? What are the standards that will allow an SME from Greece to interoperate with satellite? This should be clarified in this roadmap. And conclusions, as very well described by Oskar, standardization is a strategic enabler. Is a tool to help industry to go to the market. Is a tool to help a market to grow. Is a tool to help SMEs to go into the game. Without standards, it's very difficult. It's not optional, it's mandatory, and it's something that you should invest on this to support its ecosystem. Mainly, that is a quantum ecosystem in Europe is the members of the ecosystem are SMEs. So this roadmap should be inclusive, engage industry from the beginning. Of course, the other stakeholders should be in, but the industry should be there. I'm not sure who is going to develop this roadmap. It will be an SCSA group within European Commission. I'm not sure, but the industrial partners should be there. This should be aligned with the national strategy. So in this roadmap, should consider what the different countries want to invest to. For example, in Denmark, there is a very well-established enabling technologies market, enabling technologies for quantum technologies market. This should be considered there. In Greece, we invest now. We invest heavily in satellites, QKD market. This should be considered in a roadmap. So it will not only this standards roadmap consider the European aspect, but also the national aspects and the national interest. It's very important for that. And of course, forward-looking, this roadmap should consider the risks. It's very important because now we are in the quantum communication. We discuss about QKD and PQC. What if in 2 years' time an algorithm will crack all the PQC NIST-based algorithms? What will happen? Everything will change, and the QKD will be the only dominant technology in security. So this standards roadmap should consider all this thing. That's it. Thank you very much, and I welcome you in Geneva in the QBC Summit in November in CERN, where QUIC is organizing a summit there. So you are welcome to participate in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Homer, for your great presentation and for good indications and explicit calls for action. I welcome back Oskar. Yes, thank you, Oskar, for joining back. And we have a good 20 minutes reserved for the questions from the participants. I welcome once again participants to write questions in the Q&A section. And while you're typing, I will start with some questions that came to us through the registration form. The first question was asking to elaborate more on hardware agnostic standardization in the HPC quantum computer accelerator infrastructure. So would Oskar maybe comment on that, giving the breaking news that the standardization on quantum computing sector has just been released?
Okay, let me try and parse the question. Please elaborate more the hardware agnostic standardization of the HPC quantum computer accelerator interface. The short answer, at this moment, that standardization is not yet happening. So the layer model is just a first architectural approach on how the layers look like. I already mentioned that Euro HPC is invisible in standardization, which means if there is any interest from Euro HPC about a HPC quantum computer accelerator interface, I really welcome people working on that, projects working on that, contributing to it to standardization. But at this moment, there is no such work item.
Okay, that's very important. And
this is actually highlighting the whole point of my presentation. Tell your projects to contribute to standards because not someone else is going to make it.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Oskar. This is very valuable information. And I hope the person who asked the question can move some handles on that. And the other question was, how does the EU intend to strengthen the development of the unified software track to boost development in the field of quantum technology?
That's a very good question, but I'm not sure who's going to answer that.
Yeah, well, I have
the question towards
you. The same question. I think it's a similar question with a similar answer. So at this moment, there are two projects within 𝐶ENCENELEC ongoing on the software stack. The one is the one about the layer model that I already mentioned that names parts of the software stack. The other is about quantum computer hybridization, in which we are exploring architectures for hybrid quantum and classic computing, which also has a software component. But at this moment, I don't see any activities on this in standardization. I hope this will be part of the Euro HPC project program, but yeah, I don't have much insight in that program because I don't know the people there, because I don't see them in my standardization meetings.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Homer, would you like to add something regarding the developments in Greece, maybe?
Well, that's a very good point. In fact, I agree with Oskar on what he said. About the question of quantum communication aspects and the quantum software. Because it's a decision that the EU should take. We are not sure how to address this question. I mean, so in that case, I fully agree with Oskar on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are having here a communication, which I'm very happy to, because I think that in this particular seminar, there could be more questions from the presenters towards the participants rather than from participants towards presenters. So it's a very special setting. And we have a communication from Silvia Grandi, and she's wanting to just inform that among the European Commission's initiative on standardization, the high-level group on standardization has launched a work stream on quantum technologies in 2024, so last year. This work stream is currently preparing a report on the state of the art of QT standardization in Europe within the global context, and along with a set of recommendations.
Oksana, I would like to respond on that because, well, first of all, it is good that there's attention for standardization. However, I think that the writing of this category of reports is also symptomatic. We have a lot of activities within Europe where we make standardization landscapes. What are they doing on standardization? What should they be doing to make the standardization landscape better fixed to our interests? If we have an interest, then we should not focus on the state of the quantum technology standardization that they are doing. We should focus on what our requirements. And obviously, I haven't read this report, not yet that report. So maybe the report is more connected than I hope. But at this moment, we have many standardization landscape studies that don't contribute to standardization. They just give recommendations like they should make standards like this.
Let me also comment on that. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Because I'm aware of what a high-level forum is doing, because we are participating in this document, which is still under development. There is an ambition to this to be released within end of year or first month of next year. It's a high level. It's a high-level document. Nothing to do with the technicalities, as Oskar is mentioning here, and is trying to discuss and identify priorities, which is quite important because Europe wants to develop a roadmap. Okay, in this roadmap, you have to have the vision in the future. What you want to achieve? I think you can find these main objectives for the future in the strategy. The three objectives I mentioned: the certification, security, interoperability, etc. But during designing the steps you have to take in order to achieve this vision, you have to identify the priorities. You can't address in 𝐐𝐮𝐬 and 𝐶ENCENELEC all the needs. You have to identify the most urgent priorities and create groups of experts to address these priorities. What these documents are trying to do is trying to highlight these priorities. And of course, it's then up to Oskar, who is leading JTC22, to read these documents and discuss with the experts if there is room. I mean, if there is there are human resources enough to address these priorities. But I think these documents are working on this direction. They don't have to. I mean, they are having a discussion. What we are trying to do in this roadmap. 𝐶E� is responsible to develop a section about how to motivate SMEs. So these documents are SMEs to participate in SDOs. This is what I mean. So these reports have nothing to do with what 𝐶ENCENELEC has released as a roadmap. Okay, it's in a different perspective. Okay, they are supporting documents to what Oskar is doing. Okay, that's the main question thing.
That is a very nice exchange here. I would only like to ask if Silvia would be willing to open the microphone and comment in case there is the need, because I really like how the discussion is evolving. Silvia, I'm not sure I have the mic. Okay, let me habilitate you. Okay, now you should be able to talk.
So thank you very much, and hello to Oskar and Homer, because I've been joining this leading of the work stream quantum reporting relatively recently, but I found this very interesting, and the Commission is also interested on to have this. I absolutely agree with what has been said. So I think my information, which was a slight provocation to have from such a high level, speakers today, a feedback on something that we are really doing doing quite quickly, as Homer was saying, in the latest month, because the system is really changing quickly. And we do believe that prioritizing and creating the sense with a report maybe is not so long, making sure that is readable, is going to help to streamlining, to focus, and to make sure that different type of stakeholders in the quantum technology ecosystem will be aware of the importance of standards. For those are more into hands-on, what are probably priority, and making sure that that discussion is going on and active things are going on. There is in parallel the standardization regulation review, and also, which is not less important regarding what was Oskar saying, the review and the negotiation, the multi-annual framework, which might and maybe should, if our report is also saying this, making sure that there's some funding is actually recognized easily and smoothly for our companies, organization in the work on standardization, either in